It's been a while since I've talked in front of a group of people like this. For a while I was coming pretty much once a month. And I'm enjoying it. I talked to some of you before, but for the past 5.5 years, I was taking care of my father. And he lived in the Bay Area. I was spending most of my time there. And then would get to the monastery almost every month for about a week or 10 days. And then I would try to come out here at the beginning. I try to work it out so I could be out here on a Monday and support the monks here in the community here. And my father passed in February, so I'm transitioning back after a period of settling a household of 51 years. And challenging experience, and loss is always, the separation is always challenging, but my father was 98, and my family was really responsive, and all in all, it was as good as it gets. And we still have to say goodbye. But now I got back to the monastery on July 29th and just kind of landing and readjusting. And then I'm leaving again. On Sunday, I'm heading back down to the Bay Area, and I'm going to go to the monastery in England. And if you know Ajahn Pasan Lumpur, he's there right now. And I'll get an opportunity to have a week retreat with Ajahn Suchito. Some of you may know of him. And I'll get a 5-day retreat with Lumpur Pasano. And then I'll be going to Canada, and I'll have a 10-day retreat with Lumpur Dhamma, who was here last year in November, I think, after our Katina. And so like the last 5.5 years have been weak in the formal part of my practice. So those meditation retreats, I will find them very helpful to kind of reestablish myself more in the formal meditation. But at the same time, I feel like this last 5.5 years has been an incredible gift in the opening of the heart. And I realized early on that really what I was doing there was service, and that's what I had to focus on, was being there to be with my dad and make him comfortable and look after him. And for me, it was a very powerful experience, and I was fortunate that my father was very loving and good-natured. That's not always the case. So I was very blessed with that. And yet it was a challenge at first. But I think during the meditation, what was coming up was just, and it's been my experience at the monastery too, so often we're faced with something that we feel in our heart is the right thing to do, but there's something in our mind that resists for some reason. Maybe we're fearful, maybe because it's an unknown, because it's something we maybe don't have much experience in. And yet we have to step forward and kind of trust the heart and then use any wisdom we gain through our practice to help guide us. And we have to learn to listen to that. That's because that comes from a different place than here. And what I saw in my experience with my father, I always loved my father, but we, sometimes we had disagreements and stuff. And family, they know all your buttons, they know how to push them. And it can be done with love, but it still can be irritating. And so there was that, and then it was at the beginning of the pandemic, which was such a strange time, as you all know, the lockdown. And I was kind of uprooted from my home into a way of living that I hadn't lived for quite a few years. So I found there were a lot of challenges in that, being in an area where I didn't have my support group and interacting more with family. Where my families, I had 5 brothers and a sister. One of my brothers passed in 2018, so just interactions with family and kind of relearning all of that and taking charge of making decisions with a house that was was 51 years old when my dad died, so it was over 45 when I got there, and kind of like this, hoping the electrical system would hold out. And, you know, if you own a house, you know, or if you've owned anything, you know, you've got to put some energy into it. And I found that really quite challenging, because at the monastery, I help with the finances. I'm a steward, so I help with the things the monks can't do. But the monks looked after the maintenance of the buildings, or we hired somebody to come in and do that. I didn't have to think about any of that, and I was quite fine with that. So all of a sudden, my family was deferring to me. What are you going to do? And so there was all these things that I had resistance to, a lot of things that I had resistance to. And then I also at that time really wanted, in my mind, and in my heart, I really wanted to be back at the monastery, because that was my spiritual family. But also in my heart, I never had any doubts that it was the right thing to be with my father. So there was coming to terms with that separation of what the mind would spit out and what the heart would feel, and coming to terms with that, and then learning to live with my father again, and but just sticking with it and using the practice, and keep reflecting on, like, trusting that feeling in the heart. And I was blessed, because at some point, I can't tell you exactly when, first year, second year, and I didn't have any idea how long this would go on. But at some point, I guess the way I can describe it is that the heart and the mind merged. And then I could cry, because I felt so much joy with what I was doing. And I still miss the monastery, but my experience there was also filled with joy. And I think maybe it was just letting go of the ideas of what I thought I needed, and just accepting what I was doing, and where the time at the monastery was the time at the monastery. My time with my dad was my time with my dad, and things, and just kind of trusting that heart, that intuition, and being willing to be with the experience, and being willing to be with the mind that resisted, or the mind that, had expectations, and yet not always buying into it. I just feel like my father I was there for him, and I gave him a lot, but my father gave me a tremendous amount in my family, and I feel like my heart was plucked and it was put on my sleeve, and in a way that allows me to be a lot more aware of what my feelings are about things. I almost like experience things in a more rich, more fully, because I'm more aware of the responses that I have. It's hard for me to put it into words, but the experience has been very powerful for me, and I guess the reason I'm talking about it is because it's very recent, and because my formal practice is I'm a little bit shy on a lot of that for the past 5.5 years, so I don't have a lot to offer as far as my experiences and my development in my formal practice. But the formal practice that I did before my life, what I learned being at the monastery, and the structure of that, and being with a community who shares similar aspirations and shares a similar kind of life ethic, and the support of those conditions certainly gave me the fortitude and the ability to trust my own experiences, and to go from that point. And so often in life, we have to do that. We can't carry teachers around in our pockets. And, they can give us so much, but really, we have to be the ones that live our lives and we're the ones who make decisions, and we have to do the best we can do with what wisdom we've developed in our lives through experience, through insights, through meditation, through our friendships, and the things, and through our failures, the things that have caused us to feel remorse or regret. And so this life is really an incredibly rich opportunity, and I have no doubts that I'll be faced with other things that I have no way of anticipating, and yet I may not, it may not be what I thought I would be facing, but I feel like as life goes on, there's more of a willingness to be present, to accept the conditions, and to work with them to the best of my ability. And to always remember that we're all in the same boat. And that's another experience that was very strong for me down there, because I was kind of isolated, as everybody was in the beginning of the pandemic, but I didn't know a lot of people down there. And I knew a couple people through my dad. And then I started walking in the mornings, and I started meeting people while I walked. So there were people from very, very different lifestyle than the lifestyle I was used to, and yet it was a connection on the heart, people just being very kind to each other. And yes, there was dramas because it's human beings, and I didn't have to get involved in the dramas, but I felt like, in particular, it really shined for me when my father had to go on hospice. And my heart was very exposed, and I felt very raw. And yet I knew that this was a natural part of life. So I had all these different things coming at me. It was, he was 98. He was happy. I didn't want him to drag on with a body that was getting tired, and yet seeing that separation. And so I wanted to try to, we hired caregivers, so that afforded an opportunity for me to be there in a very different way. We had people who knew how to change him with as little discomfort to him as possible. And for a week, my sister and myself and then my brother helped out, and we were trying to do that, and it wasn't fair to him. We'd have to, because he had to wear, protection, and we'd have to flip him, get one side and flip him again, and it wasn't right, and we'd have to flip him again and flip him again, and we just went, no, this isn't fair to him. We got to bring people in who know what they're doing. But then that afforded the opportunity to be more present for my family, and to be more present with my father in a caring way. And we also got to participate in the physical caregiving, but we had professionals there who were very, very blessed in that way, very caring, two very caring women who switched off, and they felt like our family. So I also wanted to, because of my experience with my mom 12 years before was very challenging, very hard. The family had a hard time dealing with it. I didn't know what I was doing. And I wanted to try to be more present in a different way, because somebody else was taking the charge of the formal caregiving. And so I also was conscious of the fact that I knew here that this is a very natural part of life, as all of our experiences are, but there was still this rawness here. And so, like some of the people that I met walking were going to go have breakfast, and I never was able to go with them, because that was when I had to go back and be with Dad and take care of him, and that was fine for me. But I remember going to breakfast with them and feeling like it was so surreal, but that I wanted to normalize. I wanted to try to normalize this experience as much as I could. And so to go an act of going out to breakfast while my dad was physically fading was a big part of me big part of me kind of getting it, that this is a normal thing. And they were so they knew what was happening, and they were so warm, and they were so authentic in themselves, having breakfast with me, knowing that this was what I was going through. So just a lot of gratitude for the kindness in people's hearts, and that I had the ability to because of the practice, my time at the monastery, learning to turn to look at things full on, and not being afraid to look at things, not running, not hiding, which is so much our tendency. And I'm sure I'm not that way with everything, but any experience that we can get that supports that is a good thing. And I guess I don't know, in a way, just saying, yeah, don't use the wisdom you've developed in life through things that have caused suffering or things that have caused joy, and examine those things and look at those things and use those things to take it to heart and to trust your intuition and to use those experiences. Those are how we learn. And for me, this practice has been the foundation for my learning and the safe place that allowed me to soften a little bit and to learn to begin to turn around and look at things and not get caught up here so much. And so that's the encouragement, I guess, is to really take what your practice is and the foundation of your practice, whatever that is for each individual, and allow that to inform you and to trust that information. And let it inform how you respond to things. And it's hard. I can remember being at the monastery in the early days, and we were talking about this earlier because we had it was back in the days of videos, VCRs, and we had a video of it was Goenka retreats. It was the prison project. Is that what it was called, Kevin? The prison.
Doing time, doing vipassana.
Yeah, doing time, doing vipassana. And so this was probably in the early late 90s, the 90s that we watched this, the late 90s. And it was very moving because they went into prisons and taught vipassana meditation, and they showed scenes from different prisons in India. They showed scenes from prisons in America, and it was an incredibly moving thing. Lumpur Pasano was there, and he was sitting behind me, and I heard this, and after it was over, I go, oh, we called him Ajahn Pasano then. Ajahn, are you getting a cold? And he was like, no, I'm feeling the emotion. I forget his exact words, but it's like, no, I'm quite moved by this movie. And I remember thinking, wow, he's crying because of this movie. I felt moved by it, but not to that point. And so it's like, wow. But now I'm more of an experience of that heart opening and things move through. And so it's not that everything makes me cry, but there's times when I can feel that emotion, and I'm so grateful for that. I feel gratitude to the practice. I feel gratitude to Lumpur to show me that was okay, and I feel gratitude to my family, my father, for teaching me to allow my heart to open and not be afraid to have those feelings, and the training to let those feelings move and move through. And that's true of everything we feel. So, I think it's just trust your practice, let your practice inform you. Pay attention to the things that didn't work or that took you to places that you feel the tightening or you feel remorse or regret, and then lean towards the experiences that allow you to open, to feel joy, or to feel the softness, the movement of that opening. And then I think we can just experience life in such a different way. And they talk about, Abhayagiri means fearless mountain, that fearlessness to be with whatever we're faced with in life, because we can't predict it, we don't know what it's going to be, and for sure it's not going to be something we choose. Those moments are going to be there. So I guess that's just my encouragement, is to really let your practice inform your lives and keep growing, and it's very rich. It can be very rich, and it's hard. It's not easy, and patience is a big part of it. Just trusting. I don't think I need to say much more than that, but we just leave it if anybody has anything to offer, or any questions, or any reflections.
I would just like to say that I have such a strong feeling of the gift that you received, that you just told us about, and that being able to make this connection and let go of whatever it is that separates them out. And it's like, for me, that's the job of a lifetime. But when you're able to let that merging happen, the tension of those two, the gift emerges. And as you spoke about it, Debbie, I just felt it so deeply, and you have such a gift to share that with us, and I want to thank you for that.
And my work isn't over. I'm sure there's going to be things where the will go like this, and I'll have to
Yes,
go,
but
come
you're-
on.
But you're having had that experience,
Yes.
and you're having expressed it so
Thank you.
so
Yeah.
well to us, and thank you, thank you. That's a beautiful thought.
I've taken on a practice because it's not one that resonates easily for me, and it's very like Thai, maybe Asian. You know, they always bring the parents and the ancestors, and I've always kind of known that I had a lot of gratitude to my parents for the foundation that they set in my life. But what I've formally taken on now is in meditation. And at the beginning of meditation, I'm actually settling, and then I'm consciously dedicating any goodness that comes to my parents. And it's still more here. There's some here, but it hasn't quite. I'm working with it. It'll be an ongoing process because I've always felt that way, but I'm consciously wanting to really hold my parents in that way, and in gratitude, the gratitude for everything that they did for me. I want to consciously develop that gratitude, and even though they're not physically present, but they certainly have guided me in a way that has led me to where I am. So, yeah. So taking on new practices that help.
I wanted to add one thing. That just brought up for me how lucky your parents were to have you as a daughter. I hope I don't know what the relationship was like, but that they have the gratitude of knowing how fortunate they were to have. Because that doesn't happen very often, where somebody sacrifices their life to take care of somebody because it's uncomfortable, it's hard, you have to give things up that you'd rather be doing, like going to the breakfast or all of that. It's a great sacrifice to take care of a parent, and I just think it shows who you are as a person, the goodness in you,
Thank you.
and that it proves that the practice does develop a loving kindness, and I see that in you, and so that gives me faith in the practice, just your whole talk and everything.
Just to reflect on that too, another thing that I really learned in my 5.5 years was at the heart level, because I kind of had it here, but I still didn't realize, I still expected that other family members would help out. But what I learned is it's quite natural for me. I'm quite comfortable with people. I'm quite comfortable like it wasn't hard for me to help my dad take a shower. It wasn't hard for me to wipe my dad when he needed it. But not everybody is of that character or has that ability. And so that was another great gift, was seeing that people have different things to offer, and that one isn't any better than the other, and they can complement each other. So like my sister, she really tried. She's a physical therapist, so she worked with people, and she was very good in that capacity. But as a person away from her partner, locked up in a house with a man who was having some memory issues, and then feeling very fearful at night, being the responsible adult, and she had a lot of fear about being in a house by herself. And when I realized that, I think the mind and the heart had already merged by then, and I really understood that she came and helped, and I hadn't known how challenging it was for her. And I told her Lisa, you've done it. I'm so grateful you stepped in when I really needed help. And if you don't want to do this anymore, Greg and I can cover it and we'll be fine. And, you know, I mean, this was the part that was remarkable to me. It came from a non-judgmental place, and that just is where I was. It wasn't like, I couldn't have faked it. It just was where I was at that moment. And she heard that, and then she was available anytime I had to go away for an appointment or something, or we needed her to cover for a day or 2 days. She was right there. But and for her, it was such a big thing in her development. And so I got to see my family members also, the experience, and then just developing in the skills of what they had to offer. And we were all very different. And that was a real gift too. So it's like I could be with him and I could take care of him, but I'm more comfortable with that. And I've done it before, and I found when the first time I ever did it, it came very naturally. But for my sister, it didn't. And for my brother, for him, he wanted to come, and my dad was Catholic. He'd come and take my dad to church, and that for him gave him a lot of joy. And for my dad, that was great. And I didn't want to go to church. So I was happy they did it.
Yeah.
You know, so that was another really wonderful thing. And so I feel like my parents were good parents. My family was grateful to my parents, and my family was there for my dad at the end because everybody cared. And we created, and everybody was on the same page. He was in the downstairs of the house, and you know, we made a rule that any politics or any arguing had to go outside, and that this house was all about Dad, and it was a place of peace and harmony and working together. And it was all about him. And, you know, so much gratitude to my family because they all rose to that. And everybody was there for that. So, you know, I was there and I was kind of the one there the most. But everybody had a role, and it involved everybody kind of coming to that place. And that doesn't always happen. But for some...
I'm like, no.
But it did for some reason. So, so I was kind of blessed. And, but, you know, we kind of have to work with what we have. And like I look back with my mom, and it was a much different situation. And my father was kind of numbed out because he was losing the love of his life and his best friend. And I mean, it was just, I learned a lot from that though. And so it's like, rather than, I struggled with things. It took me some time, it took me maybe a year in some things with my mom to learn to accept and be okay with it and forgive myself and not blame myself. But through that I learned, and the benefit was that through that learning, I was able to ask for help with my dad. And people, if you need help, if you ask them, it's amazing. People will help you. And that's something that's taken many years for me to really learn. So, yeah, so.
I guess I just did want to say that the talk did bring up one other little thing for me when you were talking about the joy and the opening of the heart. I got this new little dog. It's like the cutest dog ever. It's like a little fuzzball. And this dog has so opened up my heart, and that just watching the joy that this little dog is so happy and is everybody's best friend, and it will come up to you and just be like, you're the most exciting thing that happened today, you know, and just be like, just so full of joy. I've never met an animal or a person that's so happy. And it's just, even if it does something that it's not supposed to do, it had an accident and peed in the house, and I was like, no, but even then I felt joy towards this dog, you know. Like,
You have companionship.
Just this little love bug. So the feeling of the opening of the heart, no matter in which capacity it happens, is just a wonderful thing. So
yeah, and then, you know, and it can be scary, the opening of the heart, because there are things that will be like that rawness. My brother said one time, we were sitting in the room, and he looked at me, and I was just sitting there, and I was fine, and then there was just this one little thing that happened, and all of a sudden I was just, and he looked up. It was like he looked at me, and I was fine, and then he looked down for a second, and then he looked up again, and there was just tears streaming down my face. But then they would shut off really fast,
Yeah.
you know. But it was just it was just so raw, you know, and that can be kind of scary. But actually, I feel really grateful because I've been able to stick through the process and observe, and you kind of. It doesn't matter what it is, with everything, there's something in the human nature that bears with and adapts, adjusts. All of us, I mean, everybody loses somebody. You know, you have to adjust to your life without that being. And yes, it's incredibly painful, and there's times when maybe you wonder how you're going to survive without them. And you should reflect that little dog may someday get sick, and
Oh, I already have.
I know, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it a miserable thing, but just
Yeah.
that's the reality of life, you know. And
Yeah.
and we all have to go through it, and in a way, we can use that to experience kindness and softness and caring for other people because we understand the potential magnitude of that experience.
Mm.
Just a commonality.
So will you be coming back regularly after you visit all of your places that you're going to visit?
I hope so. I hope I
Yeah.
can come again regularly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, obviously, I mean, I don't know what'll happen. It'll be my first winter retreat since 2020, when I was having a really good winter retreat, really good meditation, and then I was uprooted in the Bay Area with that weird time that we all lived through. Yeah, so, but I hope to come back. I want to really support the monks. It's really nice for me to come out here, and, you know, I spent a lot of time in Metika, and it was a really special time, and so I have that connection here too, and yeah, I just feel a connection here that I feel like it's a good thing to do and to share, and so hopefully I'll be back.
Great.
That's the intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your story because you're a testament of how one have to take up the responsibility. Each one of us have to take up the responsibility of looking after our parents at the end of their lives. We have to be there for them because we owe them minimum that. But it's very important time in life. That's one of the most important time in life. We can be fully there for our parents. And perhaps because of your studies and aspirations and trying to get and working on improving and getting better and taking most out of his life. And conscious practice, you have seen it and fully taken up that responsibility. It's a wonderful testament of that, and a nice, very, very nice presentation, all the details, but it's one of the most important time in life, in every person's life. You know, I mean, whatever able to take up that responsibility or not is a reflection of their state of being, state of that consciousness, and people who consciously working on trying to get better and better and take most out of this life and their abilities. It's a very important milestone in their evolution, development in human life. So, and
I mean, in some ways, we're blessed if we have that opportunity.
very
Sometimes
blessed.
we don't get that opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes people die suddenly, and so
Yeah.
then I always reflect, and I've had this for a long time in my heart too. Is I never want to part from people on a bad note, because you don't know.
Yes, it happened recently also that I lost my dad. He was 99, and but he was in Hungary, and I did everything for him to be comfortable, and he was doing quite well.
So you went to Hungary
Accident.
to be with him.
Accident, yeah. Yeah, I was prepared to go
Yeah.
and be with him, but it happened
Oh,
suddenly.
yeah.
He had an accident, he broke his hip.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in COVID time, yeah.
Mhm.
And a few years ago, and in a hospital, it just everything went so quick. But I'm very lucky that I made it
You made
for
it.
the nice last day.
Oh, good, fantastic.
The last day of his life. You know, I was there.
Yeah, wonderful.
Very important time
Yeah.
in life.
And COVID was a very hard time for people because
Yeah,
it was hard to travel. It was hard. Yeah.
it was a horror time of horror. Yeah, massive.
No, I'm really glad you got to be there.
Yeah, yeah. Mm,
Yeah.
Yes. So very important. Yeah. But, very fortunate. It's a blessing to be able to be there for our parents and
I agree.
their lives. Yeah.
You know, and you know, to have the life with your parents that becomes apparent. I think for not everybody has. Some people are estranged from their parents for whatever reasons, and so there's challenges. But in whatever way, I think that we can make our peace is so valuable to our own heart, the opening of our own heart. You know.
And it's essential learning.
Yeah.
That's we have to do it for that too, because it's an essential learning in life to go through that experience.
Mm.
To take care of our parents who
Mm.
took care of us, and, you know, because
Yeah,
of
the
that
Buddha
we
talked
wouldn't
about that.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they say one of the best gifts you can give to your parents is the gift of Dhamma. But
Mhm.
my parents had a very strong Catholic faith. They were very faithful people.
Mhm.
And so I just did everything I could do to support my father and
Mhm.
in his ability to get to church. And once a week, somebody came and brought communion. And for him, that was what was important.
Mhm.
And I really felt good about letting him have those opportunities still. Then during the week, he used to go to Mass every day, but when COVID came, he didn't anymore. But then, you know, then the wonderful thing is people started streaming these things. And so he would stream the Mass every morning. And he could do it on his own time.
Mhm.
So he still watched it. It just wasn't at the church. It was just, and for him, that was really important, and I really supported that. So, yeah.
My father, funny how he was a hardcore materialist. Very funny. At the end of his life, he started becoming enlightened. Yeah,
Yeah.
on his own.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he saw the light.
He had a long life.
The long life.
99.
He had to go through many stages.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can all learn through the time we have. It's really valuable.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.